Hi, welcome to the talk on Bent TV. I'm Matthew Wade and I'm the editor of the Star Observer.
I'm Lucy and I'm a high school teacher.
I'm David and I sold out my dreams to work at a corporation.
And I'm Sarge. I'm a film critic for sargelovesfilm.com.
So here at the talk, we obviously focus on issues affecting all LGBTI people, particularly younger LGBTI people. And today I thought we'd talk about children in schools, like safe schools, gender theory, things like that. Obviously, throughout the campaign for marriage equality during the recent postal survey, the No campaign focused heavily on safe schools, young people, and tried to instill fear in a lot of no voters that in the event of marriage equality, it would open the floodgates to radical gender theory and things like that. I guess the quite simple, well, not as simple as I may be making it out to be, but the question to you guys is, do you think there's an element of truth to this? Like in the event of marriage equality, will that open the so-called floodgates to gender theory being taught in schools or safe schools becoming more widely accepted?
I honestly have always thought that marriage equality has been completely separate from any form of the gender theory, anything taught in schools, regarding safe schools. Like, they definitely kept trying to go on about how this is going to impact that, but I've always thought of it as definitely clearly set differently from any form of teaching, education, gender theory. I mean, I would hope that now that the marriage equality is hopefully passing very soon, that they're going to recognise that this is something that is recognised as valuable and people care about this. And I would hope that it does mean that safe schools comes back. And so probably down the line it will impact, but I don't think directly.
Particularly during the campaign, it was very much used as like not a red herring, a distracting kind of mechanism to make people divert from the main kind of topic, which was essentially just changing the Marriage Act. Lucy, as a teacher, I mean, what are your thoughts on that in terms of younger people, marriage equality leading to this kind of forced, LGBTI education for younger people, like it's the worst thing in the world?
If only. I guess I disagree a little bit that I think they're separate issues. I think they're really, we're talking about equality and we're talking about freedom, and we're talking about the rights of people to love each other and to be themselves. And, safe schools was about pretty much the same thing. It was about, young people, and it is still about that in Victoria, about teaching young people that there are a lot of different ways to be a human being, that sexuality is really diverse, that gender is really diverse, and it's really important to acknowledge and respect that in each other. And, if we can do it with a postal survey, or if our politicians can finally be dragged over the line to do it, then you'd think that that makes it easier for teachers to do the same thing and to talk about the same things in school. I think it's really, really important. And I really, I was a bit sad that the marriage equality campaign distanced itself a little bit from the
addressing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and from saying safe schools, there's nothing wrong with teaching that in schools, because I think that what kind of victory is being able to marry someone if you're not allowed to talk about that in schools, that it's okay to wear a dress to school if you're born a boy. Why not?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that, the Yes campaign, and I can't speak on behalf of them, but I think their tactic was very much, to distance themselves, as to try to not, chase them down that rabbit hole. But in doing that, I think it would have been a great opportunity to kind of speak out in support of something like safe schools, because all that was talked about during the campaign in relation to students, young people, was negative from the No campaign. Sarge, what are your thoughts?
So if you were asking about the whole slippery slope thing, I think that the whole concept of it and to use it in this campaign, I think was just ridiculous. I don't know. I just feel as if I was actually trying to think of when this was used in the past, how much of it actually happened. So I was just trying to think of a time where people use this in a way of getting people to, do something for the sake of fear. So I don't know. I just don't like the whole thing with the slippery slope theory. And I know that it's just a way of intimidating and manipulating people to do something. So that's just my take on it. I don't personally believe in it. So
a lot of people were saying, once marriage equality happens, people on the no side, the whole world is going to end. But I think in the event of it becoming a reality, most people, by and large, will realise it's no big deal. And I'm hoping, by extension, that a byproduct of that will be that people are like, you know what, it's not a big deal, and young people should be taught inclusive education around LGBTI kind of stuff. Safe schools has been the main kind of buzzword around that for a long time. Do you think something like safe schools has the ability to kind of come back again in a stronger way in the future, or do you think it's kind of tarnished too much that it might have to come back in a different sort of form, like just a more regular kind of bullying kind of program?
I think people have to fight for it to come back again, because what was really attacked in the safe, the idea that was attacked within safe schools was transgender rights, and the idea that kids should be told that it's totally fine to be transgender. There was a real moral panic around that, and for something like that to be explicitly talked about across Australia, it's still fine to do that. I'm really pleased that that in Victoria, I feel confident and able to do that, but. In New South Wales, there's the teachers are not protected there to talk about that sort of thing. And so I think there needs to be a campaign, and I think that, we were talking earlier about, where to for the marriage equality campaign. I think we do need to focus attention on making sure that teachers and educators feel confident to tackle transgender rights and gender fluidity and the right for people to have different genders and sexualities at a school level.
Inevitable that beyond marriage equality, the No campaigners will still fight as hard as they can to stop things like safe schools or those kind of programs being a part of school education. David, do you think it's a possibility that, with enough support from the community and fighting for, advocating that it can be a reality again? I mean, obviously Victoria's been really great in terms of supporting that program, but just generally, I guess, inclusive LGBTI education, do you think that, marriage equality, reality, great, that with enough support that can be something that becomes, compulsory or quite widespread in schools?
Well, I'd hope so, because I'm from New Zealand and I moved here 4 years ago, and we've had marriage equality for a long time. And as far as I'm really aware, we've recently had a huge focus on the queer education within schools, and I've found New Zealand still very homophobic, despite still having a lot of equalities there. So I think that for it to actually be true societal equality, it does need to come back, and people should fight for that.
Speaking to a 13-year-old guy a month ago around the postal survey process, and he was essentially saying that almost every day in the classroom people were talking about it. And to me, I think that really reiterates or validates how important it is to have that kind of education in schools, because it's something that kids want to know about. They're not just they don't want to be naive or blissfully unaware about LGBTI issues. They kind of want to make sure they're informed. So what do you think's next, Sarge, in terms of beyond the debate? Do you think people are going to get out there and push for this? Or do you think there might be a bit of a quiet period, given we've just kind of gotten,
I think
hopefully marriage equality?
I think there might be that quiet period.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's intoxicating to feel like, we could have equality, in the formal sense of marriage. So I think people feel a bit more confident, or could feel a bit more confident to say, okay, tick here, what's next?
As students, you don't have to obviously mention who, but as students at your school, do they talk a lot about things around safe schools at all?
Oh my God, endlessly. Teenagers, it's so, you're growing up, you're discovering your own sexuality. It's such a point of anxiety to be accepted and to be acceptable and to accept each other and to find out who you are in a hierarchy. So, questions of sexuality are enormous for teenage kids. We've talked a lot. I don't know that there has been a single teenage kid in Australia who hasn't taken note of the marriage equality survey and been debating it with their peers.
And I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in a lot of this talk, whether it's about marriage equality or safe schools or anything, often one of the voices that's left out are of younger people, the people with the platform are often adults, politicians, celebrities, whoever it may be. But how important do you think it is for, going forward, younger people's voices to be heard when it comes to things that directly affect them, like safe schools?
Yeah, absolutely, they need to be heard. But I think another part of it is that teachers need to feel confident as well, because we were talking earlier about the history of, our movement and the kind of the question about teachers and their role in educating young people, and the fear that you can have as a teacher that it's going to be misrepresented, and this kind of moral panic about what teachers are teaching young kids, and are they, spoiling their minds, or, worse still. I think there is a really, really a genuine concern that is what we talk about in class, and any reassurances that we do give to LGBTIQ kids can be misconstrued as something really foul and disgusting. And so I think that confidence to talk from an adult perspective is going to help in terms of giving kids that confidence to be themselves.
Thank you again all for joining me today with that topic, and thank you for tuning in to the talk on Bent TV.